Caitlin Reed stood in the middle of their Seattle apartment, in the living room with its tattered couch and shelves piled high with Trevor's books. Her suitcase, black with a frayed handle, lay open on the floor. She was throwing clothes into it without folding them, a silk blouse, jeans, a pair of heels. Her movements were quick, almost mechanical, as if she had rehearsed this moment. Outside, a drizzle of Seattle September rain was falling, coating the glass. The apartment smelled of coffee and last night's dinner pasta and sauce that Trevor had cooked the night before. Caitlin paused, holding the red scarf. She looked at the coffee table, where a coffee mug with the words "Best Coder" written on it, a gift from Trevor's coworkers, sat. Next to it was a notebook she'd taken from a drawer in the kitchen. Caitlin quickly wrote a note, her handwriting neat but slightly shaky. "I need a life of fire, and you're a smoldering ember." She reread it, frowned, but decided not to rewrite it. She placed the note on the table and pressed the mug against it, making sure Trevor would notice. The bathroom door creaked open, and her friend Melanie, who had come to help with the move, walked in. Melanie, with short red hair and a leather jacket, was holding a box of Caitlin's makeup. "Are you sure you don't want to leave him something else?" Melanie asked, setting the box down. "Like an explanation. It's kind of cold, Kate." Caitlin rolled her eyes and zipped up her suitcase. "I said everything I wanted. He will understand." Trevor always understands everything, even if he is silent as a fish. Melanie shrugged and looked at the note. "Okay, but this mug is his favorite. He'll be furious if you use it as a paperweight." "Let him be angry," Caitlin replied, adjusting her hair. "I don't care. I'm already on one foot in a new life." Melanie chuckled and picked up the box. "Well, let's go then. My brother is waiting downstairs in the car. Only he'll whine again that I make him carry other people's clothes." Caitlin nodded, looking around the apartment. She noticed Trevor's old radio on the windowsill, the one he fixed on weekends. Her gaze lingered for a second, but she quickly looked away. "It's time," she said, taking the suitcase by the handle. Melanie's brother, Danny, a lanky guy in a Mariners baseball cap, met them at the entrance. He was smoking by an old pickup truck parked at the curb. When he saw Caitlin with her suitcase, he stubbed his cigarette out on the curb. "Is that all?" he asked, nodding at the suitcase and box. "I thought you were moving half the house." "No," Caitlin snapped. "Only what's mine." Danny opened the trunk and dropped the suitcase and box in, muttering something about the traffic on the highway. Melanie climbed into the front seat, Caitlin into the back. As the truck pulled away, she glanced out the window. The third-floor apartment disappeared around the corner, and Caitlin felt the tension in her chest ease a little. She didn't look back. Trevor Logan walked into his apartment at 6 o'clock, shaking the rain off his jacket. He was holding a grocery bag, milk, eggs, bread, the usual dinner. He had been working late, finishing up the code for a new project, and had been dreaming of a hot shower all day. The apartment greeted him with silence. Usually Caitlin would be playing music or chatting on the phone with one of her friends, but today it was quiet, just the rain pounding the windows. "Kate," he called, placing the bag on the kitchen table. There was no answer. Trevor walked into the living room and froze. Caitlin's suitcase, which usually sat by the closet, was gone. On the coffee table, there was a note, pressed down by his favorite mug. He frowned, walked over, and picked up the piece of paper. He read, "I need a life of fire, and you are a smoldering ember." Each word hit him like a cold wind. Trevor read it again, then carefully folded the note and put it in a drawer where he kept old bills and postcards. He sat down on the couch, looking at his mug. Their last conversation, last night at dinner, was playing in his head. Caitlin had been irritated, saying she was bored, that she wanted something more. "What exactly?" Trevor asked then, cutting pasta on his plate. "You love your job. We're doing fine." "It's fine," she snorted. "That's the problem, Trevor. It's too fine. I don't want to just exist." He had kept silent then, thinking that she was simply tired. Now he realized she was not tired. She had decided to leave. The front door slammed and Trevor heard footsteps on the stairs. It was his neighbor, Joe, an elderly mechanic who lived upstairs. Joe knocked on the door without waiting for an answer and walked in holding a wet newspaper. "Hey, Trevor, you home?" he called. "I saw your wife today. She was carrying a suitcase with some girl. Going somewhere?" Trevor looked at Joe, not knowing what to answer. "Probably," he said finally. "She didn't say." Joe whistled, wiping his boots on the rug. "Well, yeah. If anything, I saw them loading into a pickup. The guy driving looked like a 90s rocker. Want to ask Mrs. Kim, does she know everything about everyone?" "No need," Trevor replied, standing up. "Thank you, Joe." Joe nodded and left, muttering something about the weather. Trevor closed the door and went back into the living room. He noticed that Caitlin had left her mug in the kitchen with a lipstick stain on the rim. He picked it up, intending to wash it, but changed his mind and put it back. It wasn't his job to clean up after her. He walked into the bedroom and opened the closet. Caitlin's shelves were empty, except for one forgotten Radiohead concert t-shirt. Trevor picked it up and sniffed it. It smelled like her perfume, floral and sharp. He tossed the shirt into the laundry basket and closed the closet. In the kitchen, he took the groceries out of the bag and began to cook dinner eggs and toast. While the pan sizzled, he turned on the radio he had fixed last week. Old jazz poured out of the speakers, soft as the rain outside. Trevor sat at the table, eating slowly, looking at the empty seat across from him. Caitlin always sat there, chatting about work, about her friends, about her plans for the weekend. Now the chair was empty. After dinner, he called his friend Marcus, who he had gone to college with. Marcus worked as a bartender downtown and always knew how to lighten the mood. "Hey, man," Marcus said when Trevor got through. "What's up? You sound kind of sour." "Caitlin's gone," Trevor said without preamble, left a note and took off. There was a pause on the other end. Then Marcus whistled. "Seriously, what a twist. Did she even say where?" "No," Trevor replied. "She just wrote that I was bored and left." "Damn, that's tough," Marcus said. "Listen, come to my bar. We'll have a drink and talk. I'm having a quiet night, just a couple of tourists and an old man arguing with the TV." "Not today," Trevor declined. "I need to digest this." "Okay, but if you change your mind, I'm here until midnight. And Trevor, don't sit alone, or you'll start writing code at 3 in the morning." Trevor grinned, thanked him, and hung up. He hadn't intended to write code. Instead, he pulled out his laptop, opened a work project, and quickly closed it. He didn't feel like working. He walked into the living room, sat down on the couch, and turned on the TV. An old detective show was on the channel, but Trevor wasn't watching. His gaze fell on the radio, which was still playing jazz. He stood up and turned it off. The silence returned, heavy but familiar. He went to bed at 11, but sleep would not come. Lying in the dark, he thought about Caitlin. Where was she now? With whom? Why hadn't she said anything face to face? Questions swirled, but there were no answers. Trevor rolled over on his side, looking at the empty pillow next to him. He wasn't crying, wasn't angry. He just lay there, listening to the rain. In the morning, he woke up at 7, as usual. He made coffee, but not in the mug that was on the note. He chose another, an old one with a crack in the handle. While the coffee was cooling, he went out onto the balcony. The rain had stopped, but the air was damp. Outside, Mrs. Kim, the neighbor downstairs, was walking her dog, a small terrier in a yellow raincoat. She waved at Trevor. "Good morning, Trevor," she called. "Did you see who was loading boxes into the pickup yesterday? I thought you and Caitlin were moving." "No, it wasn't us," Trevor replied, trying to keep his voice even. "Caitlin left, probably for a while." Mrs. Kim frowned but didn't ask any questions. "Well, if anything, come for tea. I have a new one with jasmine. You'll like it." "Thank you," Trevor said and returned to the apartment. He dressed for work, jeans, shirt, sneakers. Before leaving, he stopped at the coffee table. The note was in the drawer, but the mug was still there. He picked it up and put it on the kitchen shelf. This wasn't about Caitlin. This was about him, about not letting her words define his life. Trevor Logan sat in his office in downtown Seattle, his desk covered in post-it notes and empty coffee cups. It was a Tuesday morning in early November, and the gray fog that was typical for this time of year hung outside. He had just finished debugging the code for a new app module when an email from an unfamiliar address arrived in his work email. The subject line read, William Logan Estate. Trevor frowned, opened the email, and began to read. It was from a notary named Elizabeth Raines, informing him that his great-uncle, William Logan, had died, leaving him a house on Lake Washington and a bank account with $7 million. Trevor read the text 3 times, checking for spam. The amount seemed outrageous, and his grandfather's name seemed vaguely familiar. He had heard about him from his father, but he had never met him. Trevor leaned back in his chair, staring at his screen. The office was buzzing with keyboards, someone laughing in the break room. His coworker Peter, sitting across the room, was munching on an apple and scrolling through Reddit. Trevor considered telling him, but decided against it. It was too personal, too unexpected. He closed his laptop, grabbed his jacket, and walked out of the office, muttering to Rita, the receptionist, that he'd be back in an hour. "Where are you going?" Rita shouted, not looking up from her tablet. "The meeting is at 3. Don't be late." "Just going for a walk," Trevor replied, already in the elevator. It was cold outside, and he zipped his jacket up to his chin. He walked to the nearest coffee shop, Bean and Brew, a small place with wooden tables and the smell of freshly brewed espresso. Behind the counter stood Linda, a barista with purple streaks in her hair, who always remembered his order. "Hello, Trevor," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "The usual sugar-free Americano?" "Yes," he nodded, taking out his wallet. "And, add a croissant." "Wow, a croissant." Linda raised her eyebrows. "What is this, some kind of holiday?" "Something like that," Trevor said, trying not to smile. He hadn't meant to share the news, but he was oddly upbeat. Linda handed him coffee and a croissant in a paper bag. "Well, if it's a birthday, then it's your turn to toast to your health," she winked. "Not a birthday," Trevor replied, taking the order. "Just a nice day." He sat by the window, watching the people pass by. He pulled out the email on his phone and read it again. The notary had asked to call for a meeting to discuss the details. The house on Lake Washington was described as spacious but in need of some work, and the account was at Wells Fargo. Trevor took a bite of his croissant, thinking, $7 million. He had never seen that kind of money. His salary as a developer was decent, but it didn't allow him to dream of anything more than rent and the occasional weekend getaway. Now everything was different. A guy in a bright orange jacket walked into the coffee shop, pulling a bike behind him. It was Nate, a delivery guy who often delivered packages to Trevor's office. Nate noticed him and waved. "Yo, Trevor, what are you doing here?" he said, walking up to the counter. "You're usually glued to the office." "I decided to get some fresh air," Trevor replied, sipping his coffee. "Aren't you on a delivery job?" "Break," Nate said, ordering a latte from Linda. "Just drove boxes to some startup. They ordered 100 mugs with their logo on them. Who even buys that many mugs?" "Marketers," Trevor chuckled. "All they want to do is push the brand everywhere." Nate laughed, picked up his coffee, and sat down at the next table. "Hey, have you heard about that new bar in Fremont? They make smoky cocktails, you know. Want to go sometime? I know a bartender there. He owes me a discount." "Maybe," Trevor said, though he knew he probably wouldn't. "I'll think about it." "Come on, man," Nate said, finishing his latte in one gulp. "Okay, I gotta go. 3 more deliveries, and I'm out of here." Nate left, leaving behind the smell of coffee beans and wet asphalt. Trevor finished his coffee and dialed the notary's number. Elizabeth Raines answered on the second ring. "Mr. Logan," her voice was businesslike but warm. "I'm glad you called. Can I set up a meeting to discuss the inheritance?" "Yes," said Trevor. "When is it convenient for you?" "Will tomorrow at 10 o'clock be okay?" My office is on 2nd Avenue, next to Pike Place Market. Okay, he replied. I will. Very well, said Elizabeth. Bring your passport and any document with your address. And Mr. Logan, congratulations. This is a great success. Trevor thanked her and hung up. He stared at the phone, trying to process the words, great fortune. Back in the office, he tried to concentrate on his work, but thoughts of his inheritance distracted him. Peter, noticing his distraction, threw a crumpled sheet of paper over the partition. Hey, Trevor, where have you been? He said, grinning. Thinking about your records again? Something like that, Trevor replied, waving his hand. It's just a long day. Take pyracetam, Peter joked. My brother swears it speeds up his brain. True, he sleeps for 12 hours afterwards. It looks like your brother is just lazy, Trevor said, opening the code. Peter laughed and went back to his work. Trevor forced himself to concentrate, but by the end of the day, he was still feeling groggy. He left the office earlier than usual, telling Rita he wasn't feeling well. At home, he turned on the lights in the apartment, which still felt empty without Caitlin's things. He pulled a beer from the fridge, opened a bottle, and sat down on the couch. The radio was silent. He didn't want music today. Instead, he opened his laptop and started looking up information about Lake Washington. The houses there were expensive, even the old ones, and the idea that one of them was now his seemed surreal. He found articles about real estate, but nothing concrete about his inheritance. So he simply closed the laptop and went to bed, figuring that everything would become clearer tomorrow. Trevor put on a shirt and jeans in the morning, trying to look neat but not too formal. The notary's office was in an old building with marble floors and the smell of paper. Elizabeth Raines, a woman in her 50s with short brown hair, met him at the reception area. Mr. Logan, come in, she said, gesturing toward the office. Would you like some coffee? My assistant just made it. No, thank you, Trevor replied, sitting down at the table. Let's get down to business. Elizabeth nodded and opened the folder with documents. Your great-uncle, William Logan, was a rather unusual man. He lived alone, collected rare books, and had little contact with his family. But he left a will in which he clearly named you as his sole heir. I didn't even know him, Trevor said. Why did he choose me? He mentioned that he'd been following your career, Elizabeth said. He had newspaper clippings of your participation in hackathons in college. It seemed he thought you were worthy. Trevor frowned, trying to remember if his father had mentioned this grandfather. But Elizabeth continued. The house on Lake Washington is a 3-story building built in the 1950s. It is in good condition, but needs some cosmetic work. The Wells Fargo account is already in your name. Here are the documents. She handed him a folder of papers, a bank statement, a deed to the house, keys in a small envelope. Trevor opened the statement. The amount $7,030,415 looked like a line from someone else's life. Is this all mine? He asked, not believing it. Yes, Elizabeth smiled. After paying the taxes, which we've already done. You can do with it as you wish. What? No strings attached, Trevor said. Like, I have to live in this house or something. No conditions, she replied. William wanted you to be free to choose. Trevor nodded, still processing the information. Elizabeth explained how to access the account and gave him the contact details of a realtor if he wanted to view the house. The meeting took half an hour, and Trevor left the office with a folder under his arm, feeling both dazed and collected. On the street, he met Sarah, a friend from the gym where he sometimes worked out. She was wearing running leggings and carrying a backpack, clearly after a workout. Trevor, hi, she said, adjusting her tail. Why are you so serious? Is the code not compiling again? No, the code is fine, he replied, smiling. Just family matters. Oh, that sounds intriguing, Sarah said. Want to go to that Thai place, restaurant? They have a new coconut soup. I tried it yesterday, it was mind-blowing. Not today, Trevor declined, but I'll remember about the soup. Agreed, said Sarah, waving goodbye. "Don't disappear." Trevor walked to his car, which was parked 2 blocks away. He got behind the wheel, placed the folder on the passenger seat, and thought about it. He didn't want to tell anyone about the inheritance, not Peter, not Marcus, not even Mrs. Kim. It was his, and he wanted to decide what to do with it. He started the engine and drove home, imagining what a house on the lake might look like. But most of all, he thought about how he could use this money to build the life he'd always wanted, not for show, but for himself. Trevor Logan parked his old Subaru in the field where the Lake Washington Fair was held on a Saturday morning. It was early December, and the air smelled of pine needles and hot cider sold from a large kettle. The fair was buzzing. Booths selling vegetables, honey, candles, and plants lined the dirt path, and locals milled about with shopping bags. Trevor had come to pick up plants for the garden he wanted to plant at his new house. He was in the midst of a renovation, and he decided that the yard needed some help too. He had a list in his hand: rosemary, thyme, anything flowering. He was no expert, but he wanted to try. Trevor passed a stall selling homemade jam, where an elderly woman in a knitted scarf was loudly praising her raspberry jam. "Young man, try it," she shouted, holding out a spoon with jam. "Made with love, without any chemicals." Trevor smiled politely, took the sample, and nodded. "Delicious," he said, though he could barely taste it. "Maybe I'll come back later." "Don't forget," the woman replied, already turning to the next customer. "The best jam in the area." Trevor walked on to the plant stand. There, behind a wooden counter, stood a man of about 50, wearing a plaid shirt and a beard like a bird's nest. His name was Glenn, according to his badge. A girl of about 10 was bustling about next to him, laying out pots of flowers. "What are we looking for?" Glenn asked, spotting Trevor. "We've got everything from basil to rhododendrons." "I want something for the garden," Trevor said, looking at the pots. "Something that won't be too hard to maintain, maybe herbs and flowers." "Good choice," Glenn nodded. "Rosemary is hardy, thyme is too. For flowers, take hydrangeas, they grow well here." Trevor picked up a pot of hydrangea, looking at the blue buds. He didn't know if it would work, but the flowers looked pretty. "Hydrangeas?" a voice said behind him. "Really, that's so trivial." Trevor turned around. Standing before him was a woman in her 30s, with chestnut-colored hair pulled back into a messy bun and a denim jacket. She was smiling, but her tone was more mocking than angry. She was holding a pot of lavender. "What's wrong with the hydrangeas?" Trevor asked, putting the pot back. "It's okay if you want a garden like everyone else's," she said, coming closer. "They're pretty, but boring. Lavender is better, it smells good, bees love it, and it requires almost no maintenance." Trevor looked at the lavender in her hands. It was a more modest plant than a hydrangea, but something about her words caught his attention. "Okay, you've convinced me," he said. "How much is it?" "It's Glenn's," she replied, nodding toward the salesman. "I'm just hanging out here, helping a friend." Glenn, hearing his name, intervened. "Lavender is $10 a pot. Get 2, I'll give you a discount." "Give me 2, Trevor said, taking out his wallet, "and some rosemary." "Smart guy," Glenn said, putting the plants in a paper bag. "And don't scare away my customers with your lectures on hydrangeas, Abby." The woman Abby laughed, and her laughter was loud, infectious, as if she wasn't afraid anyone would hear her. "I'm saving his garden, Glenn," she replied. "Don't thank me." Trevor paid and took the bag, but was in no hurry to leave. Abby stood nearby, straightening the pots on the counter. "Are you local?" he asked, so as not to remain silent. "Yeah, I live 2 miles from here," Abby said. "I work in the city, but I come here for the fresh air. What about you?" "Just moved in," Trevor replied. "House on the lake, renovating it." "Oh, that's cool," Abby said. "Old houses are always an adventure. My friend had one like this, and she found a chest of letters from the 50s in the basement." "I haven't found anything yet," Trevor said. "Just dust and cobwebs." Abby smiled, and Trevor noticed her eyes narrow slightly, as if she were assessing him. Well, dust is half the battle, she said. The main thing is, don't forget about the lavender. Water it once a week, and it won't let you down. I'll remember, Trevor nodded. Thanks for the advice. He wanted to say something else, but the girl who had been helping Glenn ran up to the tent. Her name was Mia, judging by the beaded bracelet. Abby, Aunt Laura's asking where you are, Mia said, fiddling with the hem of her jacket. She wants you to help with the pumpkins. Oh, Laura and her pumpkins, Abby sighed, but smiled. Okay, I'm coming. Trevor, good luck with the garden. She left, waving goodbye, and Trevor stood by the tent, feeling lighter than he had in months. The conversation with Abby had been easy, effortless, and he found himself smiling. He walked further into the fair, deciding to buy something for his home. He stopped at a pottery stand, looking at the handmade mugs. The vendor, a dreadlocked guy named Kyle, was busy talking to a customer when he noticed Trevor. Want a mug? Kyle asked, stepping away from the counter. This one with the blue pattern is my pride. The clay is local, fired in a kiln. This looks cool, Trevor said, taking the mug. How much? $20, Kyle replied. Or get two for 35. Give me one, Trevor said, pulling out some cash. I just moved, so I don't know how many mugs I need yet. Huh, I get it, Kyle said, wrapping his mug in paper. When I came to Seattle, I lived with one plate and fork. Then I just ended up with a bunch of dishes. I hope it goes faster for me, Trevor replied, taking the purchase. He walked to the cider stand, where the line was 5 deep. Behind the counter stood an older man in a straw hat, known to everyone as Mr. Hanks. He poured cider into plastic cups, loudly telling the story of his garden. These aren't just any apples, he told a couple of tourists. These are Gravenstein apples. I've had them since the 70s. Drink them, and you'll feel the difference. Trevor picked up a glass of cider, paid $3, and stepped away. The drink was hot, with a hint of cinnamon. He sipped it, looking out at the crowd. Children were running around with balloons, and someone was playing a guitar at the far end of the fair. Trevor spotted Abby at the produce stand, helping a woman, probably Laura, arrange pumpkins. Abby was laughing, brushing dirt off her hands, and Trevor thought she looked like someone who was always on the move. A guy in a knitted hat approached him, holding a bunch of carrots. It was Jeff, a local farmer Trevor had seen last week when he was buying potatoes. Hey, are you the guy who moved into Logan's old house? Jeff asked, wiping his hands on his jeans. Yeah, Trevor replied. It's me. That's a cool house, Jeff said. My dad fixed the roof there about 10 years ago. Said the attic was as big as my living room. I haven't checked the attic yet, Trevor said. But it's a big house, that's for sure. If you need anything, come see me, Jeff said. I have a farm about a mile from here. Vegetables, eggs, everything. Half the supermarket stuff is plastic. Thanks, I'll stop by, Trevor replied. Are the carrots yours? Yeah, fresh from the garden, Jeff said, holding out a bunch. Here, take it, it's free, neighbor bonus. Trevor took the carrots, thanked them, and put them in his bag. Jeff went back to his tent, and Trevor decided it was time to go home. He loaded his groceries into the car: lavender, rosemary, mug, carrots, cider, and got behind the wheel. The drive home took 10 minutes, and he thought about his conversation with Abby as he drove. She wasn't like Caitlin, who always wanted something flashy and loud. Abby seemed real, and that was nice. At home, he set the seedlings out in the backyard, where contractors had already begun digging for a deck. The lavender and rosemary looked modest against the bare earth, but Trevor figured it was a start. He walked into the living room, where the fireplace had been reshaped, and set his mug on the mantel. He finished his cider, sitting on an old chair that the previous owner had left behind. For the first time in months, he felt like his life was moving forward, and this day at the fair, especially his conversation with Abby, had added to the lightness. Trevor Logan and Abby Clark had first met at the Lake Washington Fair in early December, and a week later he decided to call her. Glenn, the plant seller, had given him her number when Trevor stopped by to pick up another pot of lavender. Now, in mid-January, they were meeting for the third time, walking along a path by the lake. It was cold, and Abby was wrapped in a green scarf she had knitted herself. Trevor had put on his old jacket, but he didn't feel the cold. Talking to Abby warmed him. "Have you seriously never tried ice skating?" Abby asked, walking alongside him and sipping hot tea from a thermos. "We have a skating rink in town every winter. It's a classic." "Never," Trevor admitted, putting his hands in his pockets. "As a kid, I was more into cycling. Skating isn't really my thing." "Well, we'll fix that," Abby said, bumping her shoulder into him. "We're going skating next week. I'll teach you, even if I have to drag you by the hand." "Only if you don't laugh when I fall," Trevor replied, smiling. "No chance," Abby said, her laughter echoing across the water. "But I'll help you up, I promise." They reached a wooden bench where fishermen usually left their rods. Abby sat down, put the thermos on her lap, and looked out at the lake. "You know, I used to come here with my brother when I was little," she said. "We'd throw rocks and try to hit the bottle. He always won, and I'm still mad." "My sister is like that," Trevor said. "We used to build pillow forts when we were kids, and she always took the best blankets." "Ha, classic," Abby replied. "Where's your sister now?" "In Portland," Trevor said. "Works in a gallery, paints watercolors. Call once a month, complain that I don't come." "We should go see her," Abby said. "Portland's cool, there's coffee on every corner." "Maybe," Trevor nodded. He didn't mention Caitlin, though memories of her sometimes surfaced. Abby was different, open, direct, without the harshness of his ex-wife. They walked back to Trevor's car, parked by the path. Along the way, they passed an old man in a fisherman's hat, carrying a folding chair and a bucket. It was Mr. Roy, a local fisherman Trevor knew from the fair. "Hey, young man," Roy called when he saw Trevor. "How's your house? Still in good shape?" "It's holding up," Trevor replied, stopping. "The repairs are almost finished." Okay, Roy said, putting the bucket down. "Who's that with you? A girlfriend?" Abby laughed, holding out her hand. "Abby, not exactly a friend, just hanging out. So you're a local fisherman?" "Yeah, 40 years on this lake," Roy said, shaking her hand. "I catch trout, sometimes pike. Want to see my catch?" "Maybe another time," Trevor said. "We're freezing already." "Well, come in if anything happens," Roy said, winking. "I always have beer and fish at home." They said their goodbyes and got into the car. Trevor turned on the heat, and Abby immediately pressed her hands to the fan. "Oh my God, it's warm," she said. "Listen, let's go to a cafe. I want something hot besides tea." "There's a place nearby," Trevor said. "Brew Haven, you know." "Oh yeah, they have the best donuts there," Abby replied. "Let's go." Brew Haven was small, with worn couches and the smell of vanilla. Behind the counter stood Liz, a barista with a daisy tattoo on her wrist who was always chatting with customers. "Trevor, I haven't seen you in a while," Liz said, wiping down the counter. "What are you getting? An Americano, or are you going to risk a cappuccino?" "Americano," Trevor replied. "Are you here every day now?" "Almost," Liz said. "My boss fired the other barista, so I'm on double shifts. Who's this?" "Abby," Abby introduced herself, looking at the menu. "I'll have a latte and a raspberry donut." "Yes, sir," Liz said, turning on the coffee machine. "Sit down, I'll get it." They sat down by the window, where a small Christmas tree with tinsel stood on the windowsill. Abby took off her scarf and put it on a chair. "Tell me about your job," she said, leaning her elbows on the table. "You're a coder, right? What, you spend all day at the computer?" "Well, not all of it," Trevor replied. "I write code for apps, and sometimes I go to see clients. The work is fine, but there are days when I want to drop everything and go to the mountains." "I understand," Abby nodded. "I'm a pediatrician, working at a clinic downtown. The kids are great, but the parents can be a pain in the ass sometimes. Yesterday, one mom wanted me to prescribe antibiotics for her son's cold. I explained to her 3 times that it wouldn't work, and she still yelled. That's brutal, Trevor said. How do you cope? Chocolate and yoga, Abby replied, grinning. How do you relieve stress? I run, Trevor said, or I listen to jazz. I have a bunch of records at home. Jazz? Abby raised her eyebrows. Are you the type to sit around with a glass of wine and pretend to understand the saxophone? No wine, Trevor laughed. I just like the sound. I can show you if you want. Sure, Abby said. But if that gets boring, I'll just turn on my playlist. It's all indie rock. Liz brought coffee and a donut and placed them on the table. Enjoy, she said. And Trevor, don't forget about the party we're having on Friday. There'll be live music. My boyfriend plays bass. We'll see, Trevor replied. Thanks, Liz. After Liz left, Abby took a bite of her donut and rolled her eyes. Oh my God, this is too good, she said. Want a piece? No, I'm not into sweets, Trevor replied, sipping his coffee. Your mistake, Abby said, licking raspberry frosting off her fingers. Hey, what kind of books do you read? You mentioned you like to read. Sci-fi mostly, Trevor said. The last one was Dune. What about you? Detective stories, Abby said. I'm reading Tana French right now. She has such twisty plots. Want to let me read one? Okay, Trevor nodded. But only if I can lend you Dune. Okay, Abby said, holding out her hand. Shake. They shook hands, and Trevor felt her hand linger in his just a little too long. He didn't know what to say, but Abby was already chatting about her dog, a golden retriever named Max, who liked to steal socks. The meetings continued throughout the year. They went to the skating rink, where Abby taught Trevor to skate, holding his hand as he slid awkwardly across the ice. They drank coffee at different cafes, arguing about movies. Abby liked comedies, Trevor preferred sci-fi. They walked through parks, discussing work, dreams, childhood memories. Trevor talked about trying to build a cardboard rocket when he was 10. Abby shared stories about her patients, like the boy who gave her a drawing of a dinosaur. He didn't mention Caitlin not because he was hiding it, but because with Abby it didn't seem important. By November, a year after they first met, Trevor knew he wanted more. His house was almost finished, a new deck with cedar planks, a fireplace that warmed the living room, a kitchen with a huge countertop. He decided to propose to Abby on the deck, where they had kissed one day after he cooked dinner. It was August, and Abby had told him his shrimp pasta was the best she had ever tasted. Trevor bought a ring, a simple silver one with a small sapphire, because Abby didn't like fancy jewelry. He planned the evening, dinner, a walk, a conversation. On Friday, he invited her over. Abby arrived in jeans and a sweater with a bottle of white wine. It's for dinner, she said, walking into the house. Damn, Trevor, your house is seriously cool. That deck is a dream. I tried, he replied, putting the wine on the table. Lasagna today. You like it with mushrooms, right? I love it, Abby said, taking off her jacket. But if you overcook the cheese again, I'm going to tell you off. Won't overcook, Trevor promised, turning on the oven. They ate in the living room, sitting at the new table Trevor had bought at a garage sale. Abby chatted about her co-worker, Monica, who was on maternity leave. She sent a picture of her baby yesterday, Abby said. So plump, like a bun, I almost melted. The kids are yours, Trevor said, pouring wine. You just glow when you talk about them. Well, I'm a pediatrician, Abby replied. It's my weakness. Do you have any weaknesses besides jazz? Running, Trevor said, and maybe you. Abby froze, then laughed. Smooth Logan, she said, but I'll remember. After dinner, they went out onto the terrace. The lake was dark, only the moon reflected on the water. Trevor took the ring out of his pocket, feeling his heart pounding. Abby, he began, turning to face her. I'm not a wordsmith, But this year with you, it's been the best of my life. I want you with me, always." He opened the box, revealing a ring. Abby gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. "Trevor, are you serious?" she said, looking at the ring. Damn, it's beautiful." "Marry me," he said, trying to speak evenly. Abby looked into his eyes, then nodded. "Yes," she said. "Yes, of course, I will marry you." She threw her arms around his neck, and Trevor hugged her, feeling the tension drain away. They kissed, and Abby laughed, pulling away. "You really did it on the terrace," she said. "I thought you should choose some coffee or a mountain." "The terrace is our place," Trevor replied, slipping the ring onto her finger. "You're right," Abby said, admiring the ring. "I'm officially your fiancé now. Oh my God, I have to call my mom. She's going to go crazy." They returned to the house, and Abby immediately called her friend Sarah to share the news. Trevor listened to her chatter and felt like his life was finally in place. Abby was someone he could be himself with, and that was more than he ever expected. Trevor Logan stood in the garden of his home on Lake Washington, adjusting his gray jacket. It was a Saturday morning in mid-August, and the air was warm, with the faint scent of the lavender he had planted the previous spring. It was his wedding to Abby Clark, and the garden had been transformed into a festive space. White chairs arranged in a semicircle, tables covered with linen tablecloths, and strings of tiny lights hung from a wooden arch made by the Kelly brothers. There were only about 30 guests, just close friends and family. Trevor wanted to keep things simple, and Abby agreed. He glanced at the terrace, where his friend Marcus, his shirt sleeves rolled up, was helping set up the music speakers. The guitarist, a guy named Luke, who Abby knew from school, was tuning his instrument while sitting on a stool. Trevor took a deep breath, trying to calm his nerves. "Hey, groom, why are you so pale?" Marcus called out when he spotted him. "Relax, this isn't an interview." "I'm fine," Trevor replied, straightening his tie. "I just want everything to go smoothly." "It'll pass," Marcus said, coming closer. "Look, even the weather is on your side. Not a cloud. I was afraid Seattle would drench us with rain." "That would be typical," Trevor said with a grin. "Thanks for helping." "Oh, come on," Marcus waved him off. "Just don't ask me to dance. I have the coordination of a drunk moose." Trevor laughed, and the tension eased a little. He walked over to the table where Clara, a neighbor across the street, was setting out plates of snacks. Her son, Jake, a teenager with a shock of curly hair, was carrying bottles of lemonade. "Trevor, where did you find these napkins?" Clara asked, holding up a pack with a floral pattern. They looked just like something out of a magazine. "Abby was choosing," Trevor replied. "She spent 3 hours on the site until she found it." "Clever girl," said Clara. "And don't forget to smile. The groom should shine, got it?" "I'll try," Trevor said, taking a bottle of water from the table. "Mom, where do I put the lemonade?" Jake shouted, balancing the box in his hands. "On that table, by the arch," answered Clara. "And don't drop it, like last time." Jake rolled his eyes, but walked toward the arch. Trevor noticed his sister, Lynn, from Portland, pull up in her car. She got out wearing a light blue dress and carrying a huge bag over her shoulder. Her husband, Greg, was carrying a gift box. "Trevor," Lynn screamed, rushing towards him. "Oh my God, you look like a grown-up. Is that a tie? I'm shocked." "Hi, Lynn," Trevor said, hugging her. "Thank you for coming." "I wouldn't miss it," she replied, stepping back. "Greg, come here and say hello." Greg, a stocky guy with a beard, shook Trevor's hand. "Congratulations, man," he said. "This place is hot. When did you get that?" "It's a long story," Trevor replied. "I'll tell you later." "Here's a present," Lynn said, pointing to the box. "It's a set of dishes. Abby said you like to cook." "Thank you," said Trevor. "Put it by the table for now. We'll sort it out then." The guests began to arrive. Peter, Trevor's colleague, arrived with his friend Sarah, who worked as a designer. They brought a bouquet of daisies, which Sarah immediately began to straighten. Trevor, where's the vase? She asked, holding up the flowers. I don't want them to wilt before the ceremony. In the house, in the kitchen, Trevor answered. In the cabinet above the sink. I'll find it, Sarah said, walking away. Peter clapped Trevor on the shoulder. So, are you ready to be a husband? He asked. If you run away, I'll cover for you. I won't run away, Trevor replied, but keep the car ready, just in case. Ha, I can do that, Peter said, pulling out his phone. Hey, who picked the music? That guitarist is straight out of the coffee shop. Abby chose, Trevor said. She's known him for ages. The ceremony was to begin at 3. Trevor walked to the arch where the priest, Father Thomas, an older man with thick eyebrows, was checking his notes. He noticed Trevor and smiled. Are you nervous? He asked, adjusting his glasses. A little, Trevor admitted. Is that normal? More than, said Father Thomas. I've been officiating weddings for 30 years, and every groom trembles. The main thing is, don't forget the words. I'll try, Trevor replied, wiping his palms on his trousers. By 3 o'clock, the guests had settled in. Luke began to play a soft tune on his guitar, one that Abby had chosen from her favorite album. Trevor stood by the archway, feeling all eyes on him. He took a deep breath, trying to focus. Marcus, standing nearby as a witness, whispered, I'm not going to tell you anything. Breathe, dude. You can do it. The doors of the house opened and Abby came out. She was wearing a simple white dress, no frills, her hair down. Her friend, Monica, a pediatrician from the same clinic, held her train. Abby smiled, and Trevor felt his nerves dissolve. She reached the arch, took his hand, and Father Thomas began to speak. Friends, we are gathered here to unite Trevor and Abby, he said, his voice loud but warm. They chose each other, and today we will witness their promises. The ceremony was short. Trevor and Abby exchanged vows they had written themselves. Trevor spoke first, looking into her eyes. Abby, you've made my life better, he said. I promise to be there for you, listen to you, and make you lasagna even if the cheese burns. The guests laughed, and Abby squeezed his hand. Trevor, you're my best friend, she said. I promise to love you, teach you to skate, and not steal your records. Father Thomas pronounced them husband and wife, and Trevor kissed Abby to applause. Luke played a lively tune, and guests began to stand up, congratulating them. Lynn ran up first, hugging them both. You're so cute, I'm crying, she said, wiping her eyes. Trevor, you finally did something cool. Thank you, Lynn, he replied, laughing. Monica, Abby's friend, came over with a glass of champagne. Abby, you're a beauty, she said. And you, Trevor, keep her on her toes. She's an adventurer. I'll try, Trevor replied, accepting the glass. The party moved into the garden. The tables were laden with food, sandwiches, salads, fried chicken, cakes that Clara had baked. Jake ran among the guests, handing out lemonade. Peter and Sarah danced to Luke's guitar, although Peter was clearly out of rhythm. Look, he thinks he's Fred Astaire, Abby whispered, nodding at Peter. Give him a chance, Trevor replied. He's trying. Clara came over with a plate of cakes. Eat up before Jake steals it all, she said. I baked until midnight, so I appreciate it. They're gorgeous, Abby said, taking a cake. Clara, you're a wizard. Oh, come on, Clara waved it off. The main thing is that you're happy. The guests were joined by a neighbor, Mr. Roy, a fisherman, who came wearing his ever-present hat. Trevor, Abby, congratulations, he said, holding up a bottle of beer. May you have as many years together as I've been fishing. How much is that? Abby asked, smiling. 42, Roy replied. And don't argue, I'm keeping count. They laughed, and Roy went off to the refreshments. The evening went on. Luke played, the guests danced, the children ran around the garden. Trevor and Abby opened the dance by choosing a song they both loved, an acoustic version of an old hit. Abby laid her head on his shoulder, and Trevor felt like he belonged here with her. Are you happy? She asked quietly as they circled. Very, he replied, squeezing her hand. As the night wore on, the guests began to leave. Lynn and Greg were the last to leave, promising to return for the barbecue. Marcus helped clear the tables, though he spent more time chatting than working. "So, married man, how do you feel?" he asked, folding the chairs. "It seems right," Trevor replied. "Thank you for being here." "Always," Marcus said, clapping him on the back. "But now you owe me a beer, a lot of beer." Trevor Logan stood in the hallway of a Seattle hospital, leaning against the wall and sipping coffee from a vending machine. It was 4 in the morning in early June 2023, and he hadn't slept in almost 24 hours. Abby, his wife, was in the delivery room, and the nurse had just told him their son was on the way. Trevor was nervous, but he tried to keep his cool. His gray sweater was a little rumpled and his hair was a mess, but he didn't care how he looked. He was thinking about Abby and the baby. Their house on Lake Washington was already set up for their new life. A nursery with blue walls, a crib, boxes of tiny onesies. Now all they had to do was wait. He was approached by Marcus, his best friend, who had arrived at the hospital as soon as Trevor had called. Marcus was holding a plastic cup of soda and looked just as tired. "Dude, you're like a zombie," Marcus said, sitting down on a chair in the hallway. "How long have you been hanging out here?" "About 12 o'clock, Trevor replied, looking at the door of the ward. "Abby's great, but I'm worried." "Of course," Marcus said, sipping his soda. "When my sister gave birth, I almost went gray, even though I was just sitting in the hallway. Everything will be fine, you'll see." "I hope so," Trevor said, fiddling with his coffee. It's so weird. I'm going to be a father in an hour." "Ha, yeah, that's the level," Marcus chuckled. "Ready for diapers and sleepless nights." "I don't know," Trevor answered honestly, "but we'll handle Abby." A nurse, a young woman named Kelly, with short blonde hair and a blue robe, approached them. "Mr. Logan," she said, smiling, "you can come in. Abby's already given birth. You're having a boy." Trevor froze, then nodded, throwing the glass into the trash. "Thank you," he said, his voice shaking. "Marcus, Go ahead, dude," Marcus said, waving his hand. "I'll wait here. Congratulations." Trevor walked into the room. Abby was lying on the bed, tired but radiant. In her arms was a small bundle wrapped in a white blanket. She looked at Trevor and smiled. "Come here," she said quietly. "Meet Owen." Trevor walked over, his throat tight. He picked up his son, tiny, with his eyes closed and his cheeks chubby. Owen let out a small squeak, and Trevor laughed despite himself. "He's so small," he said, looking at Abby. "Are you okay?" "Tired, like after a marathon," she replied. "But yeah, I'm fine. He's perfect, right?" "Really," Trevor said, gently touching his finger to Owen's cheek. "You're doing great, Abby." "We're doing well," she corrected, leaning back on the pillow. "Listen, I want coffee. Real coffee, not from a machine." "Okay," Trevor said. "As soon as they let you go, we'll stop by Brewhaven." They stayed in the hospital for 2 more days. Trevor slept on a fold-out chair in the room while Abby recovered. Owen was calm, but woke up every 3 hours, demanding milk. Trevor learned to hold him correctly, afraid of dropping him. Nurse Kelly came in to show him how to swaddle. "Don't be afraid," she said, adjusting the blanket. "He's stronger than he looks. Just keep your head up." "Easy to say," Trevor replied, awkwardly laying Owen down in his crib. "My arms feel like wood." "That's okay," Kelly laughed. "You'll be like a pro in a week. Do you have someone to help you at home?" "My mom's coming," Abby said, sitting on the bed. "And Trevor's sister said she'd drop by." "Great," Kelly nodded. "If anything happens, call the clinic. I'm still on shift here for another week." When they were discharged, Trevor drove carefully, as if he were transporting glass. Owen was asleep in the car seat in the back seat, and Abby was looking out the window, holding his tiny hand. "Home," she said, smiling. "God, I missed our bed." And a proper shower, Trevor added. The water in the hospital is barely warm. Ha, right, Abby said. And your lasagna, when are you making that again? Give me a couple of days, Trevor said. I'll deal with this guy first. They pulled up to the house on the lake. The lavender in the garden was blooming, the terrace glistening in the sun. Trevor carried the car seat out, and Abby opened the door. Waiting in the living room was Abby's mother, Judith, a woman with short gray hair and a bright cardigan. She had arrived the day before to help. "Oh, my boy," Judith exclaimed when she saw Owen. "Abby, Trevor, he's an angel." "While sleeping, yes," Abby said, hugging her mother. "Thank you for coming." "Oh, come on," Judith said, taking the car seat. "I've already made soup and washed the nappies. Trevor, are you hungry?" "Like a wolf," he replied, putting the bag on the floor. "Soup is salvation." They sat at the kitchen table. Judith poured chicken soup that smelled of dill and served the bread she had baked that morning. Owen woke up and Abby began feeding him, sitting on the couch. "He's eating like a champ," she said, looking at her son. "Trevor, want to try holding him?" "Come on," Trevor said, wiping his hands. He picked up Owen, feeling his warmth. "Hey, kid, I'm your dad." Owen opened his eyes, looked at him, and closed them again. Judith laughed. "He's already studying you," she said. "Trevor, you're going to be a great dad." "I hope so," he replied, rocking his son gently. There was a knock at the door. It was Clara, the neighbor, with a basket full of buns and a bottle of homemade compote. "Congratulations," she said, entering. "I heard you had a baby. This is from Paul and me, enjoy." "Clara, you're amazing," Abby said, accepting the basket. "Sit down. Would you like some soup?" "No, I won't be long," answered Clara. "Jake is waiting at home. We ordered pizza. But show me this handsome man." Trevor pointed to Owen and Clara gasped. "He's so sweet," she said. "Just like my Jake when he was his age. Just don't let him steal cookies like mine did." "I'll remember," Trevor said, smiling. Clara left, and Trevor and Abby stayed in the living room. Judith was clearing away the dishes, humming something from the 60s. Owen fell asleep, and Trevor put him in the crib they had set up in the bedroom. "Shall we go out on the terrace?" Abby whispered. "I want 5 minutes of silence." They went out and sat on wooden chairs. The lake was calm, the sun was setting behind the trees. Abby took Trevor's hand. "We did it," she said. "We have a family." "Yes," Trevor replied, squeezing her fingers. "And you are the chief architect of this chaos." "And you're my deputy," Abby replied, laughing. "Listen, how do you like fatherhood? Are you going to run away?" "No way," Trevor said. "It's cool. Scary, but cool." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Owen woke up at night, and Trevor and Abby took turns changing diapers and rocking him. Trevor learned to read stories by holding a book in one hand while Owen pulled on his nose. One day, he fell asleep on the couch with Owen on his chest, and Abby took a picture of them laughing. "This is my phone background now," she said, showing the photo. "You're so cute." "Was I snoring?" Trevor asked, rubbing his eyes. "Like a bear," Abby replied. But Owen didn't care, he was asleep too. Peter, Trevor's colleague, stopped by to visit them with a gift, a plush dinosaur. "For the little one," he said, handing over the toy. "Listen, Trevor, you're a dad now. Is this the end of parties?" "For now, yes," Trevor replied. "But come on in, we'll order some pizza." "Agreed," Peter said. "Abby, keep him on his toes. Otherwise, he'll go back to his jazz." "I won't," Abby replied with a wink. "We have a new soundtrack, now a baby crying." Peter left, and Trevor and Abby sat down to dinner. Judith had left the night before, leaving the refrigerator full of food. Owen was asleep in his crib, and they enjoyed a rare moment of silence. "You know, I thought it would be harder," Abby said, cutting off a slice of pizza. "But with you, it's somehow easier." "You make it easier," Trevor replied. "I'd panic without you." Ha, you'll panic, Abby said. When he starts crawling, we'll be running after him like sprinters. Getting my sneakers ready, Trevor replied, smiling. Living with Owen changed their rhythm. Trevor worked from home a couple of days a week to be there. He loved the moments when Owen fell asleep in his arms or when he smiled and blew bubbles. Abby returned to the clinic part-time, leaving Owen with a nanny, Miss Linda, an older woman who lived nearby. He's a quiet guy, Linda said as she picked Owen up on his first day. But keep an eye on him, he's already reaching for his toys. If anything happens, call, Trevor said, handing over the bag of diapers. Don't worry, Linda replied. I raised 3, I can handle it. In the evening, when Owen was home, Trevor read him a book about tractors, although Owen chewed the pages more than he listened. Abby sat next to him, leafing through the magazine. He's definitely your son, she said. He already loves technology. And your character, Trevor replied. Did you see how he screamed today when I tried to change his clothes? It's talent, Abby said, laughing. Trevor Logan sat in his home office on the second floor of his house on Lake Washington, reviewing a spreadsheet of financial calculations. It was a Tuesday morning in late September 2023, and a light rain was falling outside, pattering against the new double-glazed windows. His son, Owen, 3 months old, was asleep in a crib in the next room, and Abby was at work at the clinic. Trevor, dressed in jeans and a gray sweater, sipped coffee from a ceramic mug he'd bought at a fair 2 years ago. He'd taken on more remote work since Owen's birth so he could be home, but today his mind wasn't on code. It was on money $7 million inherited from a great uncle that he was determined to use wisely. Trevor had already moved some of his money into an investment fund, but he wanted to do more. He contacted a financial advisor a colleague had recommended. Her name was Sofia Rivera, a woman in her 40s with a fast voice and a habit of sending emails full of links. They arranged to meet at her office in downtown Seattle, and Trevor arrived on Wednesday, leaving Owen with a sitter. Sophia's office was in a glass building overlooking the bay. The receptionist was occupied by a young guy who was scrolling through his phone, but he stood up when he saw Trevor. Are you here to see Sofia Rivera? He asked, adjusting his glasses. She's waiting. Take the elevator to the right, 5th floor. Thank you, Trevor replied, heading toward the elevator. Sofia met him in an office with white walls and shelves piled high with files. She was wearing a dark blue blazer, her hair pulled back into a low bun. Trevor, good to see you, she said, shaking his hand. Coffee? We have a machine here that makes a decent espresso. I won't refuse, Trevor replied, sitting down at the table. Sofia pressed the button on the coffee machine in the corner and continued. So, you said you wanted to invest some of the inheritance. Any ideas? Stocks, real estate, something else? I want to invest in startups, Trevor said, accepting a cup of coffee. Something to do with ecology, clean energy technologies, recycling, that kind of thing. Smart, Sofia nodded, opening her laptop. Green technologies are trending now. I know a couple of companies in Seattle. One makes batteries for electric cars, the other makes water purification systems. Do you want me to send you their presentations? Yeah, Trevor said, but I don't want to just throw money at it. I want to know what I'm getting into. That's right, Sofia replied. I'm organizing a meeting with their founders. Anything else planned? The stock market, maybe? Not yet, Trevor said. And also, I want to give some of the money to charity, something for schools so kids can learn technology. Cool, Sophia said, making a note. There's a STEM program at the local schools. They teach kids programming, robotics. I can put you in touch with their principal. That would be great, Trevor replied. How much do they usually donate for something like that? It's up to you, said Sophia. 100,000 is already a serious investment. Do you want to start with that? Go ahead, Trevor nodded, and we'll see how it goes. The meeting lasted an hour. Sophia sent him startup documents and the contact information for the STEM program director, a woman named Laura Hayes. Trevor left the office feeling like he had made the first move. Outside, he ran into the delivery guy, Nate, whom he knew from the coffee shop. "Yo, Trevor, why are you hanging out in suits?" Nate said, taking off his helmet. "Are you going to the bank or something?" "No, just business," Trevor replied, even though he was wearing jeans and a sweater. "And you still ride your bike?" "Yeah," Nate said, adjusting his backpack. "I was just taking some paperwork to that tower. They have security like an airport. Hey, you want to go to a bar this weekend? I have a friend who's a DJ. That'd be cool." "Maybe," Trevor replied. "But I'm with a baby now, so I can't promise." "Oh, right, you're the dad," Nate said, grinning. "Okay, if you change your mind, right." Trevor returned home to find Owen rocked by his nanny, Miss Linda. She was wearing a flowery dress and humming some old songs. "He just ate," Linda said, handing Owen over. "He's been quiet today, not even fussy." "Thank you, Linda," Trevor replied, taking his son. "I'll be home until the evening. You can go." "Okay," Linda said, packing her bag. "If anything happens, call me. My grandson was that age too, so I'm trained." Trevor sat on the couch with Owen fiddling with his finger. He opened his laptop and began reading pitch decks from startups. One, Greenvolt, was developing lower carbon batteries. Another, Aquapure, was making water filters for schools. Both looked promising, and Trevor texted Sophia to set up meetings. The next day, he called Laura Hayes, the STEM program director. She answered on the third ring, her voice energetic. "Mr. Logan," she said, "Sophia mentioned that you were interested in our program. Is that true?" "Yes," Trevor replied. "I want to support kids learning about technology. How much will it cost to launch a new course?" "Oh, right to the point," Laura laughed. $100,000 will help open a robotics class in 2 schools. Computers, Lego Mindstorm sets, teachers all included. Want to come see how we work?" "That would be great," Trevor said. "When would be convenient?" "Friday at 10, Laura answered. "Capitol Hill School. Come, the children will be happy." On Friday, Trevor arrived at the school, an old brick building with a basketball court. Laura, a woman with short red hair and a denim shirt, met him at the entrance. "Trevor, welcome," she said, shaking his hand. "Come on, I'll show you our computer lab." They walked down a corridor where children's drawings hung. In a classroom, a group of 10 children, about 12 years old, were building robots out of plastic parts. The teacher, a young guy named Dan, was helping them. "This is our robotics club," Laura said. "The kids write their own code to make robots drive around the track. Want to try it?" "I'm not sure I can handle it," Trevor said, but he sat down at the table. One of the students, a bespectacled boy named Aaron, handed him a tablet. "You have to enter a command here to make the robot turn," Aaron said. "Try it." Trevor entered the code and the robot jerked, but then stopped. The children laughed. "It's okay, I couldn't do it at first either," Aaron said. "You need to add a pause." Trevor corrected the code and the robot drove down the highway. Laura smiled. "See how passionate they are about it," she said. "Your contribution will give us more classes like this." "I'm in," Trevor replied. "Where should I transfer the money?" "I'll send you the details," Laura said. "And Trevor, it will really change their lives. Thank you." After school, Trevor stopped by Bean and Brew to work. Linda, the barista, noticed him and waved. "Trevor, long time no see," she said, making him an Americano. "How's the baby?" "He's growing," Trevor replied, sitting down at the counter. "He's already smiling when I read to him." "Oh, that's nice," Linda said. "My nephew likes books too, only he chews them more. What's new with you?" "Just business," Trevor replied, opening his laptop. "Investing in a couple of projects." "Seriously," Linda said, setting the coffee in front of him. "You're the big boss now? Suits, meetings?" "No suits," Trevor replied, laughing. Jeans and a sweater are my style. He sat in a coffee shop for 2 hours, studying startup reports. The following week, he met with Greenvolt's founders, two engineers named Lee and Karam, in an office on the outskirts of Seattle. Lee, a woman with long black hair, showed off a prototype battery. "It's 20% more efficient than lithium," she said. "We're ready for production, but we need capital." "How much?" Trevor asked, looking at the drawings. "2 million," said Karam, the guy in the hoodie, "for 10% of the company." "Give me a business plan," Trevor replied. "If it's all clear, I'm in." A month later, he invested 1 million in Greenvolt and 500,000 in Aquapure. Sophia helped close the deals, and Trevor began receiving progress reports. His name appeared in local business news, but he did not give interviews, preferring to remain in the shadows. In October, Laura invited him to the opening of a new robotics class named after him. Trevor came with Abby and Owen, who he carried in a sling. The children showed off their project's robots that danced to music. "Trevor, it's because of you," Laura said, pointing at the class. "The kids are already writing better code than me." "They deserve credit," Trevor replied. "I just gave it a push." Dan, the teacher, approached them with a tablet. "Mr. Logan, the kids want to take a picture of you," he said. "May I?" "Only if I'm with my son," Trevor replied, pointing at Owen. Trevor Logan stood at the mailbox outside his home on Lake Washington, sorting through letters. It was a Friday morning in late May 2025, and the sun glinted off the water, making Trevor squint. His son, Owen, age 2, was running around the yard kicking a plastic ball, and Abby, his wife, was watering the lavender in the garden. Trevor pulled out a stack of bills, an advertisement, and a glossy postcard with a gold border. He frowned when he saw his name written in handwriting. The card was an invitation to the opening of Ember, a restaurant in downtown Seattle. At the bottom, in small, neat handwriting, was a note. "Trevor, come see what I've accomplished." Signed, Caitlin Reed. Trevor froze. Caitlin, his ex-wife, hadn't contacted him in 6 years, since she'd left a note on his desk. He reread the note, feeling something old stir in his chest, but it wasn't painful, more like irritation. The opening was the following Saturday, and the name Lucas Welch, Caitlin's partner, was bold. Trevor knew him from YouTube, a charismatic chef whose videos about steaks and sauces had millions of views. "Hey, Trevor, what's going on?" Abby called, wiping her hands on her jeans. "Another pizza commercial?" "No," Trevor replied, walking toward her. "An invitation. From Caitlin." Abby raised her eyebrows as she set the watering can down on the ground. "Seriously," she said, taking the card. "Wow, Ember. I heard they're already promoting this restaurant everywhere. Is she a star now?" "I guess," Trevor said, watching Owen kick the ball. "She wants me to come." "He wants to show off," Abby said, rereading the note. "Look what I've accomplished. What a nerve. Are you coming?" "I don't know," Trevor said, taking the card. "Part of me wants to throw this in the trash." "What about the other part?" Abby asked, crossing her arms. "I want her to see that I'm not who she thought I was," Trevor said. "But that's stupid, isn't it?" "It's not stupid," Abby said, smiling. "Let's go. Owen and I will go too. We'll show her what real life looks like." Trevor looked at her, then at Owen, who was now trying to catch the butterfly. "Are you sure?" he asked. "It's her show. It might be awkward." "She'll be awkward," Abby said with a wink. "We'll just eat and dance if there's music. Owen will be the star of the evening." "Okay," Trevor said, smiling. "Then let's go as a family." They walked into the house, and Trevor put the card on the kitchen table. Owen ran in after him, dragging the ball. "Daddy, play," he said, holding out the ball. "Right away, champ," Trevor replied, catching him. "Let's grab a bite first." Abby got some yogurt out of the fridge and sliced up some apples. While Owen chewed, she turned to Trevor. "We need to decide what to wear," she said. "I'm all for a dress, but not too fancy. What about you?" "My gray suit," Trevor replied. And something nice for Owen. Suspenders, Abby exclaimed. He's got the ones with the cars. He'll be a cutie. There was a knock at the door. It was Clara, the neighbor, with a basket of fresh berries. Her son, Jake, stood nearby, holding a skateboard. Hi, guys, Clara said, coming in. The berries are from our bush, just picked. Owen, want some raspberries? Yes, Owen shouted, holding out his hands. Clara, you're spoiling us, Abby said, accepting the basket. Sit down. Would you like some coffee? No, I'll just be a minute, Clara replied. Jake, show Trevor your skateboarding trick, he promised. Jake rolled his eyes, but walked out into the yard. Trevor and Abby followed him. Jake jumped on his skateboard, turned, and landed, almost falling. Well, how is it? He asked, grinning. Cool, Trevor said. A couple more weeks, and you'll be like Tony Hawk. Yeah, dream on, Jake replied, rolling on. Clara laughed and turned to Abby. Listen, I saw a poster in town for a new restaurant, Ember, she said. Is this yours? She nodded toward the postcard on the table. No, it was from Trevor's ex, Abby replied. She invited us to the opening. Wow, Clara said, raising her eyebrows. And you're going? After everything? Come on, Trevor said. I want her to see that I'm okay. That's right, nodded Clara. Show her that you're not sitting in the corner and not sad. And if the food there is bad, come to me, I'll bake pancakes. Deal, Abby laughed. Clara and Jake left, and Trevor sat at the table, looking at the card. He remembered Caitlin, her sharp voice, her habit of always being the center of attention. She thought he was the same guy from their old apartment, but he was different. He had a family, a home, a life he was proud of. That evening, Marcus stopped by with pizza and plopped down on the couch, while Owen played with his wooden train. So, Dad, how are you? Marcus asked, opening the pizza box. Is Owen writing code yet? So far, he's only breaking rails, Trevor replied, taking a piece. But he's trying. What kind of card is this? Marcus asked, noticing the invitation. Are you going to a restaurant? Caitlin invited me, Abby said, sitting down next to me. She wants to show off her new project. The same Caitlin, Marcus whistled. The one who ran off with the note. What a nerve. Are you really going? Yeah, Trevor said, but not alone, with Abby and Owen. Ha, this is going to be epic, Marcus said, munching on pizza. She's going to see you and choke on her champagne. Hey, if your jazz is there, I'm in. No, Abby said, laughing. It'll probably be techno or something hip. They ate pizza, chatted about work and summer plans. Owen climbed onto Trevor's lap, demanding a piece of crust. Marcus left around 9, promising to stop by the following week. On Saturday, Trevor went into the office to finish a project. His colleague, Peter, was sitting at his desk, scrolling through the news. Hey, Trevor, did you see this? He said, turning his laptop around. They're talking about this Ember thing. They say Lucas Welch, that guy from YouTube, is going to be in it. I know, Trevor replied, opening his computer. I was invited to the opening. Seriously? Peter said, raising his eyebrows. You're hanging out with celebrities now? Will you get an autograph? Not for me, Trevor said. It's from my ex. Wow, Peter said. You're coming? It's like that TV show where everything is awkward. I will, Trevor replied, but with my family. Let them see that I'm not stuck in the past. Respect, Peter said. If anything, I want pictures, especially if there's cake in there. Trevor smiled but didn't respond. He finished work and drove home, thinking about Caitlin. Her invitation had been an attempt to show that she had achieved success, while she felt he was a nobody. But Trevor knew the truth. His life was full, happy, and he was going to show it. At home, he told Abby about his conversation with Peter while they were putting Owen to bed. He thinks it's like a TV show, Trevor said, adjusting his son's blanket. Let him think, Abby replied, kissing Owen on the forehead. The main thing is that we know who we are. Shall we go? They walked out onto the terrace where the garlands from their wedding glowed warmly. Abby took Trevor's hand. Do you regret agreeing to go? She asked. No, Trevor answered. Trevor Logan stood in the bedroom of his house on Lake Washington, looking into the mirror and adjusting the collar of his gray suit. It was 6 o'clock on Friday, June 6, 2025, and in an hour he, Abby, and their son Owen were scheduled to leave for the opening of Ember, a restaurant Trevor's ex-wife, Caitlin, in downtown Seattle. The suit, custom-made for their wedding 2 years ago, fit perfectly, but Trevor still felt a little tense. He didn't want to look like he was trying, but he wasn't going to be as confident as Caitlin. Abby's voice could be heard from the bathroom, humming an old Fleetwood Mac song as she styled her hair. Their son, 2-year-old Owen, was sitting on the floor, waving his mother's hairbrush like a baton. Trevor smiled, looking at them through the open door. Abby, in the lavender dress she'd picked out the night before, was trying to style her hair, but Owen kept tugging at the hem. Owen, give Mommy 5 seconds, Abby said, laughing. That brush isn't a toy, baby. Mine, Owen declared, clutching the brush tightly. Trevor, take your son, Abby shouted, not looking up from the mirror. He's clearly like you, just as stubborn. Trevor walked into the bathroom, picked up Owen, and sat him on the sink. Come on, champion, give me the brush, he said, holding out his hand. Or I'll start singing, and you'll regret it. Owen giggled, but handed the brush over. Trevor handed it to Abby, who immediately resumed styling. You're my hero, she said, winking. How do I look? Is the dress too much? Perfect, Trevor replied, adjusting Owen's shirt and suspenders decorated with cars. And Owen's a star, too. That's right, Abby said, finishing her hair. Listen, are you sure we won't be late? There's probably a crowd there by now. We'll be leaving in 10 minutes, Trevor replied, looking at his watch. I'll just put my shoes on. He went back into the bedroom, got the black shoes out of the closet, and started to polish them. Owen ran after him, dragging the stuffed dinosaur Peter had given him. Trevor sat his son down on the bed to keep him out of the way. Daddy, the dinosaur is coming, Owen said, rolling the toy across the blanket. Where is he going? Trevor asked, tying his shoelaces. To the park, Owen replied, waving the dinosaur. Cool, Trevor said. But we're going to a restaurant today. There'll be music. Music, Owen repeated, clapping his hands. Abby came out of the bathroom, throwing on a light jacket. She looked at Trevor and Owen and smiled. You two are my team, she said, picking up her purse. Trevor, did you take the invitation? On the table, he replied, standing up. And the car keys, too. There was a knock at the door. It was Miss Linda, their nanny, who had come in to see if they needed any help. She was wearing a brightly colored floral dress and was holding a bag of homemade cookies. Hello, Logans, Linda said, walking in. Owen, you're looking so smart. Are those suspenders? Cars, Owen said proudly, pointing to his suspenders. Oh, you're a fashionista, Linda laughed, handing the bag to Abby. These are for the road. Owen likes pecan cookies. Linda, you're spoiling us, Abby said, looking into the bag. Thank you. Would you like some coffee before we go? No, I'll just be here for a minute, Linda answered. My grandson is at home. We're making pizza. But tell me about the restaurant. I heard that a chef from YouTube will be there. Lucas Welch, Trevor nodded. Caitlin works with him. Oh, your ex, Linda said, lowering her voice. And you're coming. How bold. Not really brave, Abby said, smiling. Just showing off how cool we are. Well done, Linda said, patting Owen on the head. Owen, be good, okay? Yes, he replied, hugging the dinosaur. Linda left, and Trevor and Abby began packing. Trevor checked that the car seat for Owen was in the car, and Abby packed diapers, a bottle of water, and a few toys into her bag. If he gets cranky in there, we have a plan B, Abby said, gesturing to the bag. Toys and cookies. You're a genius, Trevor replied, taking the invitation from the table. It's time. They went out into the yard where a neighbor, Mr. Roy, a fisherman, was watering the lawn. When he saw them, he waved. "Hey, Logans, where are you going all dressed up?" he shouted, turning off the hose. "To a restaurant," Trevor replied. "A new place is opening in town." "Oh, great," Roy said. "Owen, don't eat all the desserts. Leave some for the old man." Owen giggled and Abby laughed. "We'll try, Roy," she said. "But he's already got his eye on the cake." "Ha, that's my guy," Roy replied with a wink. "Have fun." They got into the car, Trevor at the wheel, Abby next to him, Owen in the car seat in the back. Trevor turned on the radio, playing soft pop music so as not to wake his son. Owen fell asleep almost immediately, hugging the dinosaur. "He's passed out," Abby whispered, turning around. "At least he'll get some sleep before the party." "Yeah," Trevor said, pulling out onto the road. "Listen, aren't you nervous? This is her restaurant, after all." "Not at all," Abby said, adjusting her jacket. "Caitlin wants a show. Well, we'll show her what family is. What about you?" "It's fine," Trevor said, but his fingers tightened on the steering wheel. I don't want her to think this is about her." "It won't," Abby said, placing her hand on his knee. "This is about us. And Owen, who's probably going to eat all the cookies." Trevor smiled, relaxing. It took him half an hour to get to downtown Seattle. The city was aglow with lights and the traffic was light, but it still took Trevor longer than he wanted to find parking. There were already cars parked outside the Ember restaurant, and the entrance was decorated with black balloons and a neon sign. "It looks cool," Abby said, looking at the facade. "She clearly put some money into it." "Yeah," Trevor said, parking. "Lucas Welch sure knows how to do PR." They got out of the car. Trevor picked up Owen, who was still asleep, and Abby slung her bag over her shoulder. They were met at the entrance by a security guard, a guy in a black jacket named Tony, checking invitations. "Name?" he asked, looking at the tablet. "Trevor Logan," Trevor replied, holding up the card. +2. "It's all right," Tony said, checking the box. "Come on in. We won't check your bags, but if we do, the bar's over there." "Thank you," Abby replied, smiling. "Owen, wake up. We're almost there." Owen opened his eyes, looking sleepily at the lights. Trevor adjusted his suspenders and walked into the restaurant, holding Abby's hand. They didn't know what was waiting for them inside, but they were ready. This was their night, their family, and Trevor felt a warmth in his chest, knowing that Caitlin would not see a defeated man, but a man who had built a new life. On the street, a photographer approached them, a girl with short green hair holding a camera. "Hey, can I take a picture of you?" she asked. "For the restaurant's social media, you're so stylish." "Come on," Abby said, adjusting Owen in Trevor's arms. Owen, smile. Owen giggled, and the photographer, whose name was Mia, took some pictures. "Cool," Mia said, checking the frames. "You look just like the cover. Come on in, it's already fun." "Thank you," Trevor replied, and they headed for the door. There was a guy standing at the entrance with a tray of champagne. It was Josh, the waiter, who was clearly nervous on his first day on the job. "A glass?" he suggested, holding out the tray. "We have non-alcoholic drinks, too." "Not yet," Abby replied. "But thanks. What's it like inside?" "Lots of people," Josh said, wiping his forehead. "Everyone wants a picture with Lucas Welch. Do you know him?" "Not exactly," Trevor replied. "We're here by invitation." "Cool," Josh said. "Well, good luck. If you get lost, the bar's in the corner." They walked in, but Trevor paused at the door to let Owen get used to the noise. Abby looked at him. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready," Trevor replied, squeezing her hand. "Come on." They stepped inside, bringing with them the confidence and warmth of their family, ready for any look Caitlin might give them. Trevor Logan, Abby, and their 2-year-old son, Owen, walked into Ember, a restaurant in downtown Seattle, to a buzz of conversation and soft jazz playing over the speakers. It was 7 o'clock on Saturday, June 7th, 2025, and the restaurant was new. Glass walls reflected the light from crystal chandeliers, black marble tables gleamed, and white-shirted waiters scurried about with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. The ember sign glowed neon red above the bar. Trevor, in a gray suit, held Owen's hand, while Abby, in a lavender dress, carried a bag of toys and diapers. They walked through the crowd and found a table in the corner, away from the center of the room. Owen, wearing a shirt with suspenders decorated with cars, immediately stared at the multicolored lights above the bar, pointing at them. "Daddy, the lamps," he said, jumping up and down in his chair. "Cool, huh?" Trevor replied, settling him more comfortably. "But sit still, okay?" Abby opened the menu lying on the table and whispered to Trevor. "She doesn't even know who you are now. Look at the scope here." Trevor nodded, looking around the room. Caitlin, his ex-wife, stood at the entrance, a champagne gown that shimmered in the lights. She smiled as she shook hands with guests, critics in suits, bloggers with phones, investors with glasses of wine. Next to her was Lucas Welch, the chef and YouTube star, in a black shirt with rolled-up sleeves, giving an interview to a reporter with a microphone. His beard was perfectly trimmed, his gestures confident, like an actor on stage. "So, should we order something?" Abby said, leafing through the menu. "Lemonade for us, and juice for Owen?" "Okay," Trevor replied, "and maybe some fries for him. He loves them." A waiter, a young guy named Kevin, with a badge and a slightly nervous smile, approached their table. "Good evening," he said, holding a notebook. "What would you like to order?" "Two lemonades and an apple juice for the baby," Abby replied. "And French fries, if you have them." "Yes," Kevin nodded, writing down. "Anything else?" "That's all for now," Trevor said. "Thank you." Kevin left, and Owen began playing with the toy car Abby had pulled out of her bag. Trevor glanced around the room, noticing familiar faces. At the bar stood a man in an expensive suit whom Trevor recognized as a local investor, Tom Craig. He had seen him at a startup meetup he had attended with Sophia, his financial advisor. Tom was chatting with a woman in a red dress, laughing loudly. A girl with a camera approached them, the same photographer, Mia, who had taken pictures of them at the entrance. "Hey, can I get a few more pictures?" she asked, adjusting her green hair. "You're so cool, especially the baby." "Come on," Abby said, pulling Owen onto her lap. "Owen, say cheese." "Cheese!" Owen shouted, waving the car. Mia took several pictures and showed them on the camera screen. "Great," she said. "This is for the restaurant's Instagram. I'll send it to you if you want." "That would be great," Abby replied. "My email is on the business card in my bag." Mia took the card and left, and another guest approached the table, a woman in her 50s, wearing a black jacket with short gray hair. It was Linda Marshall, a local reporter who wrote about restaurants for the city newspaper. "Excuse me, are you friends of Caitlin's?" she asked, holding up the recorder. "I'm collecting guest opinions for an article." "Not really," Trevor replied, trying to sound neutral. "She invited us, but we're not close." "Oh," Linda said, writing down, "what do you think of the restaurant? The atmosphere, the design?" "It's all cool," Abby said, looking at the chandeliers. "It looks expensive, but cozy. The jazz is a nice touch." "Yes, the music was Lucas's idea," Linda nodded. "He made the playlist himself. Thanks for the comment." She left, and Kevin brought lemonades and juice. Owen immediately grabbed the glass with a straw, spilling a few drops on the table. "Careful, champ," Trevor said, wiping the table with a napkin. "Don't flood us." "Juice," Owen said, smiling happily. Abby laughed and looked at Trevor. "He sure knows how to be the star of the evening," she said. "Look, Caitlin's over there by the stage. She hasn't seen us yet." Trevor turned. Caitlin was standing next to Lucas, who was now talking to a group of bloggers, showing them a platter of some canapés. She looked confident, but Trevor noticed the way she adjusted her hair, a gesture he remembered from their time together. He looked away, focusing on Owen. A man in a plaid shirt, with a beard and glasses, approached their table. It was Dan, Abby's friend from the clinic where she worked as a pediatrician. He was holding a glass of wine and smiling. "Abby, Trevor, you're here," he said, sitting down at the next chair. "I thought you didn't like these kinds of fancy parties." "We're here by invitation," Abby replied. "How did you end up here?" "My sister works with Lucas," Dan said. "She's a designer and did their logo. She said the food is great. Have you tried it yet?" "Just lemonade for now," Trevor said. "But the potatoes will be here soon." "Oh, potatoes are serious," Dan said, nodding at Owen. "Hey, kid, you like it here?" "Lamps," Owen replied, pointing to the ceiling. "Ha, good taste," Dan said, laughing. "Listen, if you want to dance, they've cleared out a spot in the corner. The jazz seems okay." "Maybe later," Abby said. "Owen's the lead dancer for now." Dan went to the bar and Kevin brought back fries, golden and crisp. Owen grabbed a piece, chewing with delight. "Well, at least someone's happy," Trevor said, taking a potato for himself. "Yeah, he's in heaven," Abby said, sipping her lemonade. "Listen, what do you say if Caitlin comes over?" "I don't know," Trevor answered honestly. "I'll probably just say hello. I don't want to talk about the past." "That's right," Abby nodded. "We're here to have fun, not play her games." Another guest approached them, a woman in a green dress with long earrings. It was Sarah, Abby's friend from the yoga studio, who had also received an invitation through friends. "Abby," Sarah exclaimed, hugging her. "Oh my God, you look gorgeous. And that Owen, he's so big." "Yeah, growing by leaps and bounds," Abby said, pointing at her son. "Sarah, this is Trevor, my husband." "Hey, Trevor," Sarah said, shaking his hand. "I heard you're a coder. Did you make their website? It's cool." "No, I didn't," Trevor replied, smiling. "But thank you. How was the restaurant?" "The atmosphere is great," Sarah said. "It's just so crowded, I could barely squeeze through to the bar. Have you seen Caitlin yet? She's like the belle of the ball there." "Not yet," Abby said, "but we just got here." "Well, hold on," Sarah said with a wink. "She's obviously trying to impress everyone. Okay, I'm going to the bar to find my boyfriend. See you there." Sarah left and Trevor looked at Abby. "She's right," he said. "Caitlin is in her element." "Okay," Abby said, patting Owen on the head. "We're on our own, and we have potatoes." Owen laughed, dropping a piece of potato on the table, and Trevor picked it up, wiping it with a napkin. A new tune began playing in the room, and several guests came out to dance. Trevor noticed Lucas Welch approach the microphone to greet the guests. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming," Lucas said, his voice booming through the speakers. "Ember is our dream, and we're excited to share it with you. Eat, drink, enjoy." The guests applauded, and Caitlin stood next to her, smiling and waving. Trevor looked at her, but he felt no anger or pain. He was here with Abby and Owen, and that was more important than any show Caitlin could put on. A guy in a denim jacket with a tattoo on his neck approached their table. It was Zach, a friend of Lucas's who helped with the organization. "Hey, are you friends of Caitlin's?" he asked, holding a tray of mini burgers. "Try it, it's something new from the chef." "Thanks," Abby said, taking the burger. "We're, well, acquaintances." "Cool," Zach said. "There's a photo booth by the bar if you want. Everyone's taking pictures like crazy." "Maybe later," Trevor replied. "For now, we're here with the potatoes." Zach laughed and walked away. Owen finished his drink and started playing with his car, rolling it around the table. Trevor and Abby drank lemonade and watched the crowd. Trevor Logan sat at a booth in the corner of Ember, sipping lemonade and watching his 2-year-old son, Owen, munching excitedly on French fries. It was just before 8 p.m. on Saturday, June 7, 2025, and the restaurant in downtown Seattle was buzzing with chatter, glasses, and soft jazz pouring from the speakers. Trevor's wife, Abby, in a lavender dress, was feeding Owen while chatting with him about the cars on his suspenders. Trevor, in a gray suit, was relaxed, even though they were attending the opening of a restaurant hosted by his ex-wife, Caitlin Reed. He knew she would notice them eventually, but he was in no rush. The room was packed. Bloggers were snapping photos of their food, critics in suits were jotting down notes, and investors in expensive watches were chatting at the bar. Caitlin, in a champagne dress, was flitting among the guests, smiling and shaking hands. Her partner, Lucas Welch, a YouTube star, was standing nearby, giving an interview to a local TV station. Trevor wasn't looking at them, focusing on Owen, who was now trying to build a tower out of potatoes. "Dad, look," Owen said, picking up the potato. "A house." "Cool house," Trevor replied, adjusting his chair. "But don't eat off the floor, okay?" Abby laughed, wiping Owen's hands with a napkin. "He's an architect like you," she said, winking. "Only his projects are tasty." The waiter, Kevin, the same guy who had brought their order, came to their table, holding a tray of mini appetizers, tiny salmon tartlets. "A compliment from the boss," Kevin said, setting down the tray. "Try it, it's new." "Thank you," Abby said, taking a tartlet. "Owen, want to try one?" "No potatoes," Owen said, waving his hand. "Well, that's enough for us," Trevor said, sampling the appetizer. "Not bad. Lucas knows his stuff." Kevin smiled, but looked a little confused. "It's a crazy night," he said. "Half the guests want their picture taken with Welch. Do you know him?" "Not personally," Trevor replied. "We're here at Caitlin's invitation." "Cool," Kevin nodded. "It looks like she invited everyone in town. Okay, if anything happens, call me." He left, and a woman in a blue dress with long brown hair approached the table. It was Rebecca, Abby's friend from the yoga studio, who worked as a manager at a local gallery. "Abby, Trevor, hi," Rebecca said, hugging Abby. "I didn't think I'd see you here. Is that Owen? He's so big." "Yeah, already building food towers," Abby replied, pointing at the potatoes. "How did you end up here?" "My gallery did the decor for their bar," Rebecca said, nodding toward the wall of abstract paintings. "Caitlin commissioned a couple of pieces. Are you friends with her?" "Not exactly," Trevor said, trying to sound neutral. "She just invited me." "Oh," Rebecca said, lowering her voice. "Well, she's obviously trying to impress. The restaurant is fancy, but it's as crowded as a concert. Well, I'm going to find my boss. See you there." Rebecca left, and Abby looked at Trevor. "She hasn't seen us yet," she said, nodding toward Caitlin, who was now chatting with a group of bloggers. "But it won't be for long." "Let her," Trevor replied, sipping his lemonade. "I'm not running after her." Owen dropped the potato on the floor and frowned. "Fell," he said, looking at Trevor. "No problem, that's all," Trevor replied, moving the plate. "Just don't throw it, okay?" A man in a gray shirt, with a short beard and glasses, approached their table. It was Mike, an acquaintance of Trevor's from the gym where they sometimes played basketball. "Trevor, dude, you there?" Mike said, shaking his hand. "Not your style, this kind of partying." "They invited us," Trevor replied, smiling. "This is Abby, my wife, and Owen, our son." "Hey," Abby said, waving. "Mike, are you here for the food or just hanging out?" "My girlfriend works with Lucas," Mike replied, pointing to the blonde at the bar. "She's a food stylist. She shoots their dishes. How did you get here?" "An old friend," Trevor said, without going into details. "We decided to drop in." "Cool," Mike said. "The food is great. Try their steak. Just don't get the cocktails. They're kind of sweet. Okay, I'm going. Mine's waiting for me." Mike left and Abby laughed. "Everyone thinks we're here by accident," she said. "Caitlin's going to be shocked." Half an hour later, Caitlin finally spotted them. She was standing near the stage where Lucas was finishing up a conversation with a reporter, and her gaze swept across the room. When she saw Trevor, she froze, her smile frozen. She was clearly confused by Abby, her hand on Trevor's shoulder, and Owen, munching on a French fry. Caitlin fixed her hair, gathered herself, and headed toward their table, trying to look confident. Her heels clicked on the marble floor, drawing the eyes of several guests. "Trevor, you're here," she said, stopping at the table. Her voice was even, but her eyes were surprised. "I didn't expect you." "Hello, Caitlin," Trevor replied, looking at her calmly. "Thank you for the invitation." Caitlin looked at Abby, then at Owen, who was now rolling the car across the table. Her eyebrows rose slightly. "And this," she began, but fell silent. "This is Abby, my wife," Trevor said, gesturing toward Abby, "and Owen, our son." Abby smiled, holding out her hand. "Pleased to meet you, Caitlin," she said amiably. "The restaurant is gorgeous. Congratulations." Caitlin shook her hand, but her smile was forced. "Thank you," she replied. "We worked hard." Owen looked at Caitlin and waved, holding the typewriter. "Hello," he said, smiling. Caitlin blinked, clearly not prepared for this. "Hello," she replied, softening slightly. "How sweet." "Yeah, he's our star," Abby said, patting Owen on the head. "Caitlin, you're great. This place is really impressive." "We tried," Caitlin replied, adjusting her dress. "I'm glad you came. I hope you like it." "Already like it," Trevor said, keeping his tone neutral. "The food is great." Caitlin nodded, but her eyes darted between Trevor, Abby, and Owen. She clearly hadn't expected to see him with his family and was so happy. "Well, I have to go," she said, her voice shaking. "Guests, you know. See you later." "Sure," Abby replied, smiling. "Good luck tonight." Caitlin muttered something like, "Thank you," and turned to leave, but then Lucas Welch approached the table. He was wearing a black shirt, holding a glass of wine, and looked like a man accustomed to being the center of attention. "Caitlin, where have you been?" he said, putting his hand on her shoulder. "The Seattle Times reporters are waiting." "Who is it?" Caitlin hesitated, but Trevor answered for her. "Trevor Logan," he said, extending his hand. "This is my wife, Abby, and my son, Owen. Congratulations on the opening." "Oh, cool," Lucas said, shaking hands. "Thanks for coming. How do you like the seat?" "Cool," Abby said, "especially the chandeliers, and potatoes are a hit at Owen's." Lucas laughed, unaware of the tension. "Ha, potatoes are our secret weapon," he said. "Owen, take 5. Owen slapped him on the palm, and Lucas smiled. "Caitlin, come on, we're being called," he said, nodding toward the reporters. "Have fun, guys." Caitlin nodded, casting one last glance at Trevor, and walked away with Lucas. Her steps were faster than before, as if she wanted to escape. Abby looked at Trevor and whispered, "She's in shock. Did you see her face?" "Yeah," Trevor said, sipping his lemonade. "But I don't care. We're here for us." "That's right," Abby said, pushing the car toward Owen. "Owen, show Daddy how your car drives." Owen started to push the car, making motor sounds, and Trevor laughed. Another guest approached their table, a woman in a black jumpsuit with a short haircut. It was Lisa, Abby's friend from the clinic where they worked together. "Abby, there you are," Lisa said, sitting down next to her. "I thought you didn't like parties like this." "We're here for a special occasion," Abby said, nodding toward Trevor. "Lisa, this is Trevor, my husband, and Owen, our potato eater." "Hi," Trevor said, waving. "Oh, how cute," Lisa said, looking at Owen. "Listen, I just tried their tiramisu. It's the bomb. Order some." "I'll remember," Abby replied. "Who are you here with?" "With colleagues," Lisa said, pointing to a table by the window. "They're already arguing about which cocktail is better, and how are you, having fun?" "So far, yes," Trevor said. "We've just started." "Well, hold on," said Lisa, standing up. If you get bored, come to us. We've got a quiz going on. Lisa left, and Trevor and Abby remained at the table. Owen finished his fries and began to yawn. It's time for him to sleep, Abby said, taking a blanket out of her bag. Hold him while I make him a nest. Trevor picked up Owen while Abby laid a blanket on the chair. Owen snuggled into his father's arms, closing his eyes. He passed out, Trevor whispered. Okay, Abby replied. Let him sleep, and we'll sit for a while. A guy in jeans and a shirt with an organizer's badge approached them. It was Zach, whom they had seen earlier. Hey, is everything okay? He asked, looking at the sleeping Owen. There's a quiet one if you need it. Children's room. We're coping so far, Abby replied. But thanks. How are things? Is everyone happy? I think so, Zach said, wiping his forehead. Only one guest spilled wine on the tablecloth. Now we're running around with stain remover. Anyway, if anything happens, I'm at the bar. Zach left and Trevor looked at Abby. We did it, he said. We met her and nothing collapsed. Yeah, Abby said, squeezing his hand. You did great, and I'm proud of us. Trevor Logan, Abby, and their 2-year-old son, Owen, sat at a corner table at Ember restaurant in downtown Seattle, enjoying the evening of Saturday, June 7, 2025. The room buzzed with conversation, the clinking of glasses, and soft jazz pouring from the speakers. Crystal chandeliers reflected the light from the glass walls, creating a festive atmosphere. Owen, wearing a shirt with suspenders decorated with cars, finished his fries and played with a stuffed dinosaur, while Abby, in a lavender dress, sipped lemonade. Trevor, in a gray suit, looked at his family and felt calm. They were not here, at the opening of his ex-wife Caitlin Reed's restaurant, to prove a point, but to live their lives. Caitlin, in a champagne dress, flitted among the guests, but Trevor noticed her glance in their direction several times. Her confident smile seemed forced, especially after their brief encounter half an hour ago, when she approached their table and saw Abby and Owen. Trevor did not seek her attention, focusing on his family. Owen, would you like dessert? Abby asked, leafing through the menu. There's chocolate mousse. Chocolate, Owen shouted, waving the dinosaur. Okay, one mousse for the champion, Trevor said, calling the waiter over. And what about you and me? I'm for tiramisu, Abby replied. Lisa said it was great. Kevin, a waiter they had known from previous orders, came to their table. He looked a little less nervous than he had earlier in the evening. What are we taking? He asked, holding a notebook. Chocolate mousse for the baby, tiramisu, and 2 coffees, Trevor said. And a smaller spoon for Owen, if possible. We'll do it, Kevin nodded. The mousse comes with berries. Is that okay for a child? Yes, he likes berries, Abby replied. Thank you. Kevin left, and a woman in a black dress with long earrings approached the table. It was Carol, Abby's friend from the book club, who worked as a librarian at the local school. Abby, Trevor, there you are, Carol said, smiling. I didn't think you liked parties like this. We're here by invitation, Abby said, adjusting Owen's position in his chair. Carol, this is our son, Owen. Say hi. Hi, Owen said, waving at the dinosaur. Oh, what a handsome man, Carol said, sitting down. Abby, how did you get here? This is Caitlin Reed's restaurant, right? Yes, Trevor replied, trying to keep his voice even. She invited us. Wow, Carol said, lowering her voice. I heard she and that chef, Lucas, are big stars now. But you don't look like the type to hang out with people like that. Not hanging out, Trevor said with a smile. Just came in for something to eat. Well, the food here is great, Carol said, gesturing to her glass of wine. Try their risotto. I almost swallowed my spoonful. Okay, I'm off. My friends are already dancing. Carol left and Abby looked at Trevor. Everyone's surprised we're here, she said, laughing. Caitlin probably thought you'd show up alone and sad. Let him think, Trevor replied, shrugging his shoulders. The main thing for me is that we're together. Kevin brought out desserts. Chocolate mousse for Owen, topped with raspberries, and tiramisu with 2 spoons for Trevor and Abby. Owen dug into the mousse, smearing chocolate all over his cheeks. "Well, here's our artist," Abby said, wiping him with a napkin. "Owen, you're a darling." "Delicious," Owen said, smiling. Trevor tried the tiramisu and nodded. "Lisa was right," he said. "It's really delicious." "I told you," Abby said, taking a bite. "Hey, maybe we should dance. There's a free spot over there." "With Owen?" Trevor asked, looking at his son, who was now playing with a spoon. "Let him sit," Abby said. "I'll cover for him. Or call Marcus. He promised to stop by." A man in jeans and a leather jacket approached their table. It was Nate, a delivery guy Trevor knew from the coffee shop. He was holding a beer and looked slightly tipsy. "Trevor, dude, you there?" Nate said, clapping him on the shoulder. "This kind of party isn't your style." "They invited me," Trevor replied, smiling. "Nate, this is Abby, my wife, and Owen. How did you get here?" "My friend's a bartender," Nate said, nodding toward the bar. "He said there's free beer for the insiders. Do you know Caitlin?" "A long time ago," Trevor replied, without going into details. "Have you tried the food yet?" "Yeah, these mini burgers are awesome," Nate said, chewing. "But the shakes suck, too sweet. Owen, those suspenders are cool." "Cars," Owen said, pointing to the suspenders. "Ha, that tastes great," Nate said, giving a thumbs up. "Okay, I'm heading to the bar. If anything happens, you'll find me there." Nate left, and Abby laughed. "He's cheerful," she said, "but beer clearly wins." "That's Nate," Trevor replied. "He's always like this." Another guest approached their table, a woman in a green jacket with short black hair. It was Julia, a local food blogger Abby knew from Instagram. "Abby, hi," Julia said, holding up the phone. "Can I take a picture of you? You're so cool, and the baby is so cute." "Okay," Abby said, sitting Owen down. "But he's covered in chocolate, so no filters." "That's a plus," Julia said, taking a photo. "Hey, have you tried their shrimp? I've already had 3 servings." "Just desserts for now," Trevor replied. "But we'll remember the shrimp." "Sure," Julia said, checking the photo. "I'll post it with the hashtag Ember. Are you friends with Caitlin?" "We know each other," Abby replied, smiling. "She invited us." "Cool," Julia said. "She's great. The place is awesome." "Okay, I'm off to rent a bar. See you there." Julia left and Owen began to yawn, dropping the dinosaur on the table. "It's time for him to sleep," Trevor said, looking at his son. "Maybe we should go home soon." "Another half hour," Abby replied. "I want to try that risotto everyone's been talking about." Kevin brought coffee, and they drank it while chatting about their weekend plans. Owen fell asleep, snuggled up against Abby, and she covered him with a blanket from her bag. Trevor saw Caitlin glance in their direction again, but now her gaze was uncertain, almost lost. She stood at the bar, listening to Lucas joke with the investors, but her smile seemed mechanical. Caitlin came up to their table. She moved more slowly than the first time, and her dress was slightly wrinkled. She paused, looking at Owen's sleeping form, then at Trevor and Abby. "You're still here," she said quietly, trying to smile. "Having a good time?" "Yes," Trevor replied, looking into her eyes. "The food is great. The atmosphere is great. Well done, Caitlin." "Thank you," she said, adjusting her hair. "I didn't think you'd come. With your family." "Why not?" Abby said, friendly but firm. "We love good restaurants. Owen loves potatoes." Caitlin nodded, her gaze falling on Owen. "He looks like you, Trevor," she said, almost in a whisper. "You're happy, aren't you?" "Yes, Caitlin," Trevor replied, not looking away. "Very." Caitlin paused, her fingers tightening around her purse. She wanted to say something, but changed her mind. "I'm happy for you," she muttered. "Well, I have guests to attend to. Thank you for coming." Good luck with the restaurant, Abby said, smiling. It's going great. Caitlin nodded and walked away, her steps quick, as if she was afraid to look back. Trevor looked at Abby. It was strange, he said. She didn't expect you to be like this, Abby said, petting Owen. Happy, confident. That's what got to her. Maybe, Trevor said, finishing his coffee. But I don't care. The main thing is that we're here. A man in a gray suit, with a bald head and a wide smile, approached their table. It was Richard, an acquaintance of Trevor's from startup meetings. Trevor, are you there? Richard said, shaking his hand. I didn't know you hung out in places like this. They invited me, Trevor replied. This is Abby, my wife, and Owen. Richard, how are you? Fine, Richard said, looking at the sleeping Owen. Great guy. I'm here with my partners, discussing a new project. I heard you invested in Greenvolt. Yeah, Trevor replied. So far, so good. I respect that, Richard said. If anything happens, call me. We have a couple of ideas. Okay, I won't bother you. Have fun. Richard left, and Abby looked at Trevor. Are you a star in business circles now? She said with a wink. I doubt it, Trevor replied, laughing. I just got lucky with my projects. Kevin came over to clear away the empty plates. Everything okay? He asked. Should I bring you anything else? That'll do for now, Abby replied. But we'll order the risotto next time. It's worth it, Kevin said, taking away the dishes. Trevor looked at his watch. It was almost 9. Owen was asleep, and they decided to get ready to go home. It's time, Trevor said, standing up. I don't want him waking up in the car and being cranky. Okay, Abby said, carefully lifting Owen up. Will you take the bag? Trevor picked up the bag, and they headed for the exit. At the door, they were stopped by Mia, a photographer with green hair. Hey, are you leaving already? She said, holding the camera. I sent you the pictures to your email. They're awesome. Thanks, Mia, Abby replied. We'll definitely check it out. Come again, Mia said. It'll be great here if Caitlin doesn't go crazy with guests. They walked outside, where the air was cool and the city was aglow. Owen snuggled sleepily against Abby as Trevor unlocked the car. They put their son in the car seat and Trevor got behind the wheel. So, was the evening a success? Abby asked, sitting down next to him. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.